In today's video, we have some NHL trade rumors focusing on the Winnipeg Jets. We also have some very unfortunate news on Jonathan Toews of the Chicago Blackhawks, some odd news on Vladimir Tarasenko of the St. Louis Blues, and we also have some signings, including some PTOs for the upcoming training camps. We'll jump into all the latest news coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we have a variety of news topics here to cover today. I want to kick things off with the big news out of Chicago today that Jonathan Toews, the captain of the Blackhawks, will be out indefinitely, and there is a real possibility he could miss the entire 2021 NHL season. Now, there was some rumors about Toews and something was going on with him. We never talked about it because it didn't really have a whole lot to go on. I was kind of waiting for something to come from the team or a more reliable source. But I know even as far back as I think it was around the 23rd or 24th, Pierre Maguire had made mention of it as well, indicating that he had heard that Toews could be out for an extended time, upwards of maybe 4 to 6 months. He wasn't really sure, didn't want to get into it too much because it was secondhand information. And now we have confirmation as well that, there is something going on with him. It's not an injury because there was rumors about some kind of a workout injury as well, but it is some sort of illness. So basically, Jonathan Toews and the Blackhawks both put out statements here today. I'll give you a quick snippet here of what he had to say. Essentially, Jonathan Toews said that for a portion of the offseason, he has not been feeling well, has been feeling really lethargic, and didn't feel that he was able to compete. He will not be reporting to training camp, and unless he can perform at the elite level that he expects of himself, he didn't think it would be fair to himself, his teammates, or the organization for him to come to training camp and to try to play, and that at this time, he is going to be looking after his health and trying to get things sorted out before he makes a comeback. And there's obviously no timetable when that's going to be. Of course, the Blackhawks also put out a statement indicating that they're supportive of Toews and want him to look after his health first and foremost. So it's a big blow to the Blackhawks, who already had some bad news. This is the third version of bad news when it comes to players not going to be able to compete for them, not only at the start of the season, but the likelihood of them being out all season. First, it was Alex Nylander, who's not a major piece of the puzzle with Chicago, but still a young player that they had higher hopes for. Kirby Dach, of course, one of their top picks from a couple of years back, going into his second season, was expected to make some big growth and development this year. Goes to the World Juniors with Team Canada, and in their one and only exhibition game before the tournament starts, gets hurt, and he's going to be out for 4 or 5 months, which, based on the 2021 season here, is going to basically be the whole year. And now Jonathan Toews, and even though there's no timeline on it, like I said, if what Maguire was hearing earlier about a week ago was somewhat accurate, then it could be 4 to 6 month time frame for him to get more in order. Now, Jonathan Toews might know more than what he told publicly, which is totally his own personal business. He doesn't have to divulge anything that he doesn't want to. He also said that he would not be commenting on the matter any further and asked everybody to respect his privacy during this time while he focuses on his health and recovery. So, maybe they know a little bit more than they want to divulge publicly, like I said, which is totally his prerogative, and we have to respect that. But I'm not sure where the 4 to 6 month time frame came from before, but if that's accurate, like I said, he'll be out for the whole season. So we obviously don't know what kind of health issue this is. Obviously, it sounds like it could be something serious or scary, so we certainly have our thoughts with Jonathan Toews. He's a terrific hockey player, well accomplished, a guy who's done a lot throughout his NHL career, as well as internationally for Team Canada. Very well respected in the NHL community. A guy who was also very much involved with the return to play stuff as well. So certainly a player that a lot of guys look up to, and a big part of the NHL on the business side of things. Very, very smart and astute player in that regard as well. So we hope he is able to come back and play and when the time is right here. But we'll have to wait for hopefully some updates at some point to see how he's making out. But we wish him nothing but the best in his recovery. Now, as far as some signings go today, we have a few signings and some professional tryout signings as well. As I reported last night, the Oilers did indeed come to terms with Ethan Bear on a contract. He gets a 2-year deal at $2 million per season. As I talked about in yesterday's video, it was being reported that the Oilers had 3 different offers on the table, basically a 1, a 2, and a 3-year deal. Looks as though obviously they settled on the 2-year contract. I think 2 years at $2 million is a great deal for Edmonton side of things. I thought Ethan Bear had a tremendous year last year, really took some big steps forward. So to get him at $2 million, I think that's a big win for Edmonton. So that's a great signing in my opinion. He'll still be a restricted free agent at the end of the contract. He will have arbitration rights next time as well. So obviously things will be a little bit different during the negotiation process. But still a great signing there, a great contract. Good to get that looked after so that he can get to camp and be a big part of that team. Because obviously with guys like Clefbaum out of the picture, they're going to be relying on guys like him and Darnell Nurse and Tyson Barrie even more than usual. So we'll see how he progresses here after he took some big leaps last year. Now, the other signing was the Ottawa Senators signed another one of their 2020 NHL draft picks today. The third of the first rounders, Ridly Greig, who was taken number 28 overall. Of course, a forward playing in the Western Hockey League. Obviously, another guy who was, potentially heading to the World Juniors, but ended up not being able to go because of COVID stuff. He was somebody who had tested positive early in the process and just never got back to really giving himself a real shot at making the team. But still, a guy who's got a lot of potential. Obviously, somebody they were really fond of, and obviously happy to be able to draft him so late in the first round there. So another good signing by the Ottawa Senators. Now, when it comes to some professional tryouts, the Oilers, of course, who just signed Ethan Bear, also invited a few players on PTOs, including Devon Shore and Ryan Stanton, who will both attend on PTOs for Edmonton. We also saw the Arizona Coyotes add defenseman Jordan Schmaltz on a professional tryout contract as well. Of course, he's played around with a few other teams, including the Blues before, so he'll join his brother Nick, of course, who has a longer-term contract with the Coyotes in Arizona. So he'll attend camp and see if he can earn himself a spot on the roster or the taxi crew or whatnot for the upcoming season as well. And the last signing of the day was another PTO. The Buffalo Sabres have added Riley Sheahan on a PTO. Kind of odd in a way that he couldn't get himself a cheap one-year contract, $700,000 or something to that effect, but I would think with the Sabres situation that he would have a decent shot at getting a contract if he performs well in camp. But obviously he'll go to Buffalo Sabres training camp to see what he can do. Now, the other odd news as well that came out of Russia concerning Vladimir Tarasenko. Now, what had happened basically is he completed an interview and his agent had made comments as well regarding the captaincy in St. Louis. I had first seen this news a little bit yesterday. I wanted to kind of dig into it a little bit further before we talked about it because there was already enough other stuff on the go for yesterday's news video. Essentially, Vladimir Tarasenko's agent made comments that he felt that Tarasenko should have been named captain over Ryan O'Reilly, just to kind of summarize things, and that he didn't really feel that the St. Louis Blues did a great job. Of course, Tarasenko's been there a long time, has been a good performer for them, and felt that that's the direction that they should have headed. Tarasenko was asked about the comments, and he basically said, when you've been with a team for 8 years, you expect to be able to be named captain. So obviously it doesn't sound like they're too pleased with the fact that Ryan O'Reilly was given the C over himself. He did acknowledge as well that he thought him and Jaden Schwartz, who are the longest tenured Blues right now, would have the best odds at getting the captaincy. But, to be completely honest, it's not about tenure all the time. It's about who you feel is the best fit. And yes, you can argue Tarasenko does show some leadership. I know there's been a lot of talks about him playing through a lot of pain and, being a bit of a warrior that way. They do nickname him Tank for a reason. And he's put up a lot of great statistics for them. They've been a pretty solid goal scorer for the bulk of his career. But at the same time, Ryan O'Reilly, I think, almost was a bigger factor in them winning the Stanley Cup. Like, it's that work ethic that he brings day in and day out, brings the team into the battle. I listened to all the comments from the St. Louis Blues organization that they made when they announced him to be the team captain. I think O'Reilly is extremely deserving, and it's not that either one of them really said anything bad about O'Reilly per se. It was just more about the fact that they kind of felt jaded, that they were overlooked, and especially where he had been wearing an A as an alternate captain for an extended time as well during his tenure with the Blues, that he just felt that the guys who already had A's and had been there longer would be highly considered more so than a guy like Ryan O'Reilly, even though he's only been there for 2 years. But during his first season, look what happened. He was a huge part of them winning that Stanley Cup. He won the Conn Smythe Trophy, took home a ton of hardware, and was one of the top players in the playoffs and in the NHL as a whole. So to me, I have no issues with O'Reilly being named captain myself. I understand where this is coming from to an extent, but, it's not all about that. Now, I understand when a player's traded to a team, they're named captain before they ever even play a game or in that first season. That can be a little bit awkward. I think it's not always a wise move. You got to kind of, fit in and kind of slowly build up your leadership within that group and kind of show you belong and kind of earn that respect all over again. It's almost a fresh start for guys when they get to a new team. But, at the end of the day, I think this is totally legit in a way for Tarasenko to feel disappointed. I mean, I don't blame him. If he's been there a long time, he was really hoping to be the captain. He wants to have that leadership role. That's great that he feels that he should be deserving, and it's great that he feels like he should be considered. I have no issues with that whatsoever with how he's feeling. I just don't think it was a wise idea at all to go public with those types of comments from the agent or for himself. I mean, that's going to make things incredibly awkward, I would think, when their season gets underway. I mean, Tarasenko won't be at training camp immediately because he's out injured with an injured shoulder that he had to have surgery on, which is probably another part of the reason why the Blues wouldn't name him captain right away. Although you could do that in a way. I mean, we saw Montreal do that with Shea Weber, even though he was going to be out injured for a little while. But still, when he does come to St. Louis, when he's ready to start playing again, you would have to think that that's going to create some awkwardness between himself and O'Reilly or the other leaders on the team, between the coach and GM. I don't know. I just don't know that it was a wise move. I know there had been some talk before the Blues won the Cup because, as we know, that year started off terrible for St. Louis. They went from last in the league to winning the Stanley Cup. It's quite a story. As most of you likely remember, there was talk that Doug Armstrong was willing to clean house at one point and even trade guys like Pietrangelo and Tarasenko, longtime Blues guys who really had been a big part of the franchise to get good returns and kind of start a bit of a rebuild and kind of tear things down. And, if Tarasenko, I guess, could find himself in a spot where maybe he could become trade bait, especially if they play really well with a guy like Mike Hoffman that they're going to be signing here to kind of take his spot while he's out. I mean, they traded a guy like Tarasenko with multiple shoulder surgeries with the amount of term and money he's left on his contract as well. Might prove to be difficult. I'm not sure how easy that would be, but I would have to think that the awkwardness from this interview and the fact he's going to be out, if they get off to a hot start and they do really well without him, that could certainly bring things into question about his future there, at least I would think. But not to say that I have any rumors to say that he is being traded or being tossed around out there, but I'd have to think that this could lead to something more down the road depending on how things go in the next little while, especially once more communication takes place between Tarasenko and the team, because he took some shots there at guys like Armstrong and the head coach Berube and even his teammates as well. So it's just kind of doesn't seem the most professional in my opinion. Now the trade rumors I want to talk about today as well are about Jack Roslovic and the Winnipeg Jets. We're not talking about Patrick Laine today. This is all about Roslovic here because we did get word because of comments made from his agent to NHL reporters that Roslovic will not be attending Winnipeg Jets training camp. He's going to be staying home in the U.S., which is going to pose issues if he does get a deal done here to stay in Winnipeg. Obviously, he'll have to quarantine and could miss part or all of camp depending on when things come together. But he's staying home in Columbus until he either gets a new contract or he's traded. So it doesn't necessarily mean he's made a formal trade request, but it does sound like we've known for some time that he's been open to a change of scenery to get more of an opportunity. And I would have to think that perhaps he is moved after all instead of being signed. And the other thing to consider here with all this is even if they come to terms here in the next few days, it's quite possible that he may not even be able to participate in training camp because of the quarantine issues. By the time he gets to Winnipeg, goes through all that and the testing, training camp will be pretty much coming to an end. And that's assuming if things came together relatively quickly. And if not, I do think the possibility of a trade is certainly a real thing here. Roslovic's a player who I thought would end up becoming that number 2 center, but when he's given the opportunity, he hasn't been able to really grab it. The Winnipeg Jets obviously do not have confidence in him to be full-time in that top 6 role here as of yet. They wouldn't have brought back Paul Stastny. So we'll see what happens. But the Winnipeg Jets and their young players have not had a really great relationship in the last number of years. We've seen way too many players leave town. It happened before with guys like Jacob Trouba. They have the situation with Laine. You get the situation with Roslovic. And this is not the first we've seen of this. Unfortunately, the Jets organization have really, for a lot of their young players, this has come up way too many times. So they need to break this pattern and find a way to incorporate their young players into becoming big parts of the team and keep them around. Otherwise, they won't be competitive for too long when some of their other top players start getting a little bit older and not able to compete at that level anymore. It's just a shame if they basically have to trade Roslovic because of the lack of opportunity. It's just going to be another not so good look on the Jets organization. So let me know your thoughts. Give me some trade proposals down below. I know like a team like Columbus, which is near obviously where he's from, would be a great fit. They've been looking for some offensive help. Maybe he ends up being traded there. I know there's rumors before about the Jets and the Blue Jackets having trade talks, mostly around Laine, but still, he's another player I think that Columbus would have interest in if the Jets decide to pull the trigger and they can't get him signed. But I don't think the Jets really feel pressured here. Obviously, they feel like they probably have the leverage for right now, because if he can't play, that's going to hurt his stock as well in an already shortened, complicated, kind of weird season. So we'll see what happens with Roslovic and the Winnipeg Jets, but certainly a player we can see on the move here in the very near future. Let me know your thoughts on something discussed here today down in the comments, and we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content. And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.